Look, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me this morning. And, I'm really grateful to UKHospitality for thinking that we've got something to contribute to this gathering. And from the very outset, I would like to say that I've got no doubt of the government's commitment to the skills agenda, and I think it's particularly come to the fore in the recent past. I'm sure you'll hear that from the Minister today, but I think, I've got absolutely no doubt in my own mind, and particularly in the interactions that I have with ministers, that they are absolutely committed to this agenda, and it's going nowhere, and actually they want more, not less of it. And the formation of ifATE in 2017, I think, is a very good early symbol of that commitment. The Institute was created to bring the employer voice into technical education, so to put employers at the forefront of it. And prior to that, the employer voice wasn't heard, so actually there was a strong feeling that our technical education, that's our apprenticeships and also technical qualifications, were not demand-led. And that was a key part of the reforms. It's a central bit of the reforms. It's what ifATE exists to do. And within that organisation, I'm responsible for our apprenticeships and our technical qualifications products. That includes T-levels, higher technical qualifications. So they all sit in my portfolio. And this key plank of the reforms of putting the employers at the centre of thinking was that employers should define what they need people to, skills they need people to have acquired to be competent, and also that they should play a key role in quality assuring that has been delivered. And actually, there is no successful technical education system in the world that doesn't have employers at its heart. So ifATE's primary role is to convene employers to approve and assure our technical education. That is from level 2, so GCSE level, to level 7, masters. Uniquely, our programme is an all-age programme, so that means that it's both for people who are in work and people who are starting on their work journeys, and also it goes across all sectors of the economy. And the final thing that it does that our system is unique with is in apprenticeships we use endpoint assessment, and we're one of 2 countries in the world that do that, which is a sort of employer led or employer defined practical assessment at the end of someone's apprenticeship, which actually confirms that they're occupationally competent. So that's how the programme's formed, and what we're trying to do is make sure that it's also a programme that's aspirational and within it has options for all. And as I say, this is done through apprenticeships, it's done through technical education, and the technical education sort of family at the moment has in it T-levels, which are at level 3, so A-level equivalent. It has higher technical qualifications, which are at levels 4 and 5, so foundation degree level. We are beginning the process of approving and getting employers to approve other level 3 qualifications, so other than T-levels, and in due course it will expand into level 2, and we expect to have absolute clarity on that programme and when it will start later on this year. Now, not wishing to wash away the challenges of the programme, I think it's worth just taking a moment to reflect on how successful the programme has been. So last year there were 740,000 people on an apprenticeship. Around 30% of those people doing apprenticeships were at level 2, 40% were at level 3, 20% at levels 4 and 5, and a small proportion, but a very important proportion, doing degree apprenticeships, so level 6 and 7. And satisfaction rates are extremely high, with well over 80% of employers saying that apprenticeships are delivering what they want, which was the absolute opposite of what they were saying before we put them at the centre of the programme. And I'm delighted to say that 90% of apprentices who were surveyed last year actually said that they felt that their apprenticeship was equipping them well for what they needed to do. And I know that there are different views on it, but the reality is that the levy has doubled the investment in apprenticeships. So prior to the levy, there was half the financial investment in apprenticeships in the country. We're now well into the rollout of the T-level programme, so we've done the first 3 waves. We're due to move into wave 4, which is where catering is slated to be, and there are now 70 higher technical qualifications, HTQs, available for use. So actually, I think if you reflect on what we've achieved and the positivity that we would bring, actually, a lot is happening in the space, and the programme is really getting traction and moving forwards. And of course, anything that you do in education takes a long time to feed through. But those are pretty helpful figures, and despite COVID, you know, we've kept the programme on track. So I think that's very, very positive. And in highlighting it, I'm fully aware that there's a very strong tradition of apprenticeships and technical training in the hospitality sector. And I'm also aware of how incredibly difficult the last few years have been. And it was really brought home to me when I was up in Darlington a couple of weeks ago, and I'd wandered around the city centre in Darlington, and I used to live there 20 years ago, and was really shocked to see the number of pubs and the number of restaurants and a couple of wine bars where there, on a Wednesday night, the bartender was there or the waiter was there, and there were absolutely no clients in those venues. Really, really surprised me and brought home to me the sort of challenges in the sector. And also illustrated the skills challenge, because the hotel I was staying in had breakfast, and I asked for a bit of salt and pepper to go on my scrambled egg, and you know, the waiter, you know, I said, "Could I have some salt and pepper?" He said, "Well, we could make it available," rather than, "Yes, I can sort of get it." And when it arrived, you know, it was sort of dirty at the top and hadn't been cleaned. And I'm not trying to denigrate the sector, I'm just illustrating the challenges and reflecting back to you that we really understand that this is a sector that needs help and assistance. It's got a lot of positivity, things are moving positively, but it needs that help and support, and how important skills are within that. So in terms of future priorities, we want to keep the momentum going with improving apprenticeships. And we now feel that we're through the initial sort of bulk of apprenticeship approvals. There's 650 available now. So actually, we're much more into the amendment and the updating of those apprenticeships and evolving them. And we reviewed over 100 apprenticeships last year, and we expect to do the same in the year that's coming. So there's quite a significant programme of renewal and updating. We also need to play our part in driving down the number of people who fail to complete an apprenticeship. And currently the completion rate is about 58–59%. That's across the whole programme, which means that 40% of people who start an apprenticeship are not completing it. And as part of that, we've recently done a consultation on mandatory qualifications. So that's looking at the qualifications that sit within apprenticeships, and we expect to be adjusting the policy on that in the coming year, and also trying to integrate the achievement of an apprenticeship with professional qualification at the same time in the endpoint assessment. Talking about assessment, we think that we need to support the assessment market better, and we need to assist with training delivery. There's still too many apprentices who are saying they're not getting the quality or the quantity of training that they think they're due. Now, in the qualification space, the programme is more emergent. It started later, and we need to complete the delivery of the first round of T-levels. And unbelievably, we're about to start contracting for the second round of T-levels. So the ones that we approved in waves 1 and 2, we're about to recontract to bring those back out to reset those. We're definitely focused on getting participant numbers up, and appreciate that much more needs to be done to extend the awareness of T-levels and also industry placements. And we need to get the message out on higher technical qualifications, HTQs as well. They're not particularly well understood, and make them much easier to deliver at scale so that they work better for employers. And we're on with, I say, we're sort of really focused on process with level 3, where people are asking for their qualifications to be, awarding bodies are asking for their qualifications to be improved by employers, so actually that they're, that process is working efficiently. But more than these parts, we're also really focused on building a skills system, so something where you don't have an apprenticeship and qualifications that sit separately, that they're intertwined, that we provide progression routes for people to move through. So a simpler, more transparent skills system. We recently did a thing called the Big Conversation to understand what people felt about that, and I hope a lot of people in the room may have contributed to that. And in the coming year and the years beyond, we'll be looking to see what we can do as the Institute to advance that agenda of a much more accessible skills system which people can understand and therefore have more confidence in and therefore buy into. So I'd now like to turn to the hospitality sector specifically. And we're pleased with the progress on the route review, which we've been looking at the, how the route is working. And we're currently working with employers to update both front of house and back of house occupational standards. And actually we're looking to accelerate that and to try and do that a bit more quickly to tie in with the T-level programme, which I'll come back to. Now, it's crucial that the occupational standards reflect what employers want and sector needs, and we appreciate that that has changed as a result of the pandemic, so we're looking to reflect those changes. The other thing that we're particularly focused on is individual resilience, what we can do to support managers in terms of the recognition of mental health and the support of that, and what we can do with individuals to help them in the sector. And as I say, in due course, we see the ability to bring those hospitality-based standards in and potentially sit alongside the catering bit of the catering T-level. The second thing that we're doing specifically is we're undertaking an exceptional funding band review for 4 high-volume hospitality apprenticeships, with the aim of alleviating some of the increase that has come about of the cost of living crisis. And actually, we've been asked to look at 20 apprenticeships, so not the whole portfolio, just 20. And 4 of those come out of the hospitality sector. So that's an indication, and there are 15 routes, so that's an indication that there is a recognition that support is required. And the sort of thing that we need to do is understand that the cost of ingredients have gone up, so therefore that should be reflected in the funding band for apprenticeships. But actually it's been compromised a little bit, so we're doing it, but actually it's taken us a bit of time to get going because actually we need to retrench the trailblazer groups. So those are the employers that actually specify the knowledge, skills and behaviours in those standards. And I'll come back to that in a minute. For the longer term offer, and particularly recognising within the sector, we're trying to engage with alleviating the image of hospitality, to change perceptions, to get across that the opportunities it has. It's an attractive and exciting career. And the sort of thing that we've managed to do is to get the Department for Education to showcase a chef and a hospitality team member when they were promoting National Apprenticeships Week. So to try and build it up and put it alongside other apprenticeships that might be better recognised or people might naturally gravitate to. And we're also very keen to make sure that stretches into social media and particularly the career starter site that gets thousands of hits, particularly as people graduate from GCSEs and A-levels. And finally, we're updating our occupational maps, which is the sort of system we use for describing how everything fits together. A new, sort of more interactive version of those will be made available, we hope, in March, and that will allow people to see progression through a sector and how things how things fit together. So I think that will help with the apprenticeships, T-levels and HTQs joining up. And the final thing that we've done is that we've included the hospitality manager standard in the next round of higher technical qualifications, so that we expect that to be an HTQ, which will give people a route in from level 2 and 3 apprenticeships to a foundation degree level. So to close, where could you perhaps help us? We are committed to the employer voice, which does necessitate a really close relationship with employers, and perhaps understandably, the employer engagement with the Institute over the period of COVID in the hospitality sector, as a couple of other sectors, which I'm sure you can guess, has waned, has fallen back a bit, and we do need to retrench that. We do need to strengthen it. And we are always on the lookout for people, whether it's a micro business, a small business, or a really large business, to engage in what we do. And we're particularly interested in employers from this sector that are interested in defining the knowledge, skills and behaviours that go into an apprenticeship and actually shaping that. And secondly, we have a thing called the Employer Directory, which guides some of the endpoint assessment work we do and the standards that we apply at the end. And we would be very, very interested in anybody who wants to come forwards to be part of those groups. We would like to strengthen them, and I think that's an important part of the sort of employer voice in technical education deal, that employers have also got their voices have got to be heard. So, in summary, we do absolutely recognise that hospitality remains a very exciting sector, and that there is a lot of recovery post-COVID. It offers good rewards for its people, and actually we think some of the fastest pay progression from the entry levels up to some of the more senior and influential places. We're really keen to play our part in the development of the skills and qualifications needed that actually supports the sector's skill agenda. And we're always open to ideas, and we're always open to challenges. So for those that are engaged in the programme, thank you very much. But I think there's still some more that collectively we can do. I'm optimistic about the future, but I think we need to keep at it and keep going. Thank you very much.
I was interested to hear what you were saying about hospitality needing to tell that apprenticeship and training story better. So my question is, what are your thoughts on how we do that? And do you have a line of sight on any industries that are doing it really well and possibly, dare I say it, better?
There are one or two things that people have about perceptions of the sector. And I was chatting to somebody recently who we were talking about the loss of Eastern European labour in the market. And it wasn't just the numbers piece. And I've lived sort of 13 years of my life in Germany and Europe. It was also the fact that actually working in hospitality was regarded in a very different way, and it was regarded with a level of professionalism. It was regarded with a level of sort of worthiness. It wasn't thought of, oh, it's somewhere where students go when they can't think of anything else to do. So I think one of the first things that is trying to increase the level of professionalism and the understanding of what that means in the sector is really important. I think the other narrative that's very, very difficult for the sector is the pay narrative, where people, think actually it's not particularly well paid, and it's somewhere where the sort of, saw the slide earlier, where there's not flexibility in the working hours and how you can work. So I think those are the sort of negative narratives that need to be addressed, and it's not unique to hospitality. In terms of sectors that are doing better with it, I think every sector has got its own challenges. I mean, there's a fundamental people challenge at the centre of every sector at the moment. There's also a fundamental diversity challenge. The one thing that all our employers are clear on is that actually they need to access bits of because of the skills challenge, they need to be far more robust in accessing areas that they currently don't get to. So whether, gender's the obvious one, some industries are dominated one way, or another. So I think there is a massive challenge with that. If I could point to a sector that does better, I genuinely think that I would probably struggle. I think all sectors would say that they have a real challenge, and I think it's more the image of the sector that is the bit to work on, rather than somebody's doing something else or someone's got a magic way of unlocking this.
Yeah. Did you want to come in there?
So I could say the one thing that I think could make a difference is the positivity around the sector, and I know that that's one of the themes for today, but I think being realistically positive about it will change people's perceptions, and I think that's a really important aspect. If I'm allowed to go on a little bit, I was the Army's personnel director when we were running a redundancy program, and the 7,000 people made redundant. Army doesn't like making people redundant, so the agenda that we pursued was, this is something we didn't want to do, woe is me. And actually that created a 15-year recruiting crisis afterwards, because young people perceived it to be an industry that was in decline, and it took that long to put it straight. So I think thinking about how it's managed and how the growth and the improvement is managed, I think is really important. I think that's why the sort of subject matter for this meeting and the sort of sense of it is really important. So I think that's the one bit of advice I could offer you.
Robert, I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Robert Nitsch, everyone.